Hi everyone, welcome. This is Dani Tapia from Artsing 365. Today I'm excited to talk to Miami-based artist Alba Triana, who is originally from Colombia and is having now a solo exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in Bogota, MAMBO, which is a very exciting occasion. So welcome, Alba. Very nice to
Hello,
have you.
Dani. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm very happy that we finally could, set up a time. I know the exhibition opened last year and it's almost about to close on February 6th, but I wanted to make sure that, we gave it the due importance that it has for you and, for everybody in that sense, for the Miami community, for you to have such an important recognition of your work and your career. So
Thank
why
you.
don't you tell us a little bit about the exhibition, the title, and the work that you're showing?
Okay, so yes, the exhibition is called Vibrational States, and it opened on August last year, and actually it got extended till February 13. Yes, it got extended, and the name of the exhibition really encapsulates not only what happens in the exhibition, but also what is my current artistic quest. For years, I've been working with different forms of vibration, so vibrational states, like sound, because I come from music. I studied composition, and actually most of the pieces are unfold not only in space but also in time. So I work with sound, not only visible sound but also audible sound. I work with light, with electromagnetism, but deep down, what is important is that I'm trying to work with what is fundamental in the natural world. I'm trying to use my artistic practice to dive deep into the very essential elements that constitute us, and that I believe through the practice I have realized how what is the agency of matter in our lives, in our organization, that there is a big part of how we function, what we do, why do create art, that really has to do with everything, how everything operates. So that is the the essence
Fundamentals.
of the show, and also what has become my artistic quest, which initiated as a musical composer, as I told you before.
Yeah. Avan, I know that you are in a little bit of category of your own, which has,
Yeah.
sometimes makes it a little harder for you to, find like a niche, not find a niche, but, like share your art and your pieces because they have a degree of technical difficulty and need certain conditions. I guess we'll get into more of that, but why don't we talk about the pieces one by one so that we can also show some of the images that are being shown now? Like, what would be
Yes,
the first one that we will encounter if we visit the exhibit?
I think when you enter the museum, there is an atrium, which is like the main hall. Is a huge hall in the museum. So when you enter the museum, there is like an ensemble of 10 pendulums. That the ceiling is probably about. Sometimes I get confused with feet and meters,
That's
but
fine.
it must be about 12 feet tall or 15 feet tall. So there are 10 pendulums hanging around the space in an organization, and they all have a magnetic sphere, and they are each pendulum. They look like a module, like this is a modular piece, and in each module there is an electromagnetic field that is different. So the electromagnetic field is a material that I'm using that we cannot perceive. We will never be able to perceive. And the electromagnetism is something that is very essential in the natural world. It from the particles to everything in our physical perceptive reality, it is really present. So I wanted to create in this piece a dialogue between a tangible element, something that we can see, with the intangible things that govern our existence, that we will never be able to perceive and that probably we're not aware of, because this dialogue really has to do with our humanity. It is not about moving a sphere. It is not about using electromagnetism just for the sake of it. It's about exploring the essence of our humanity, because I think we are not a separate entity from nature. We are nature. And I think that by exploring these as an artist, because this is an artwork, I am really exploring very profound things that define ourselves. So we have this ensemble of 10 pendulums, and the magnetic field drives the sphere, and each sphere creates like a sort of choreography. So they do a trajectory. Each trajectory is different, and the way this trajectory is the trajectory has like a sort of identity. Each pendulum has like a sort of identity, and it in a way it behaves, even though it is obvious that I'm manipulating the trajectory, it self-organizes similarly, like following forces that we find in the natural world. For example, it organizes in a way similar to how a solar system would organize, following the same forces, or an atom, something that we see at different scales of the natural world, because we are part of that, and we can really feel that when we see the work. The other thing, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was curious if is the work at all modified or influenced by the viewer, like when people walk around it, or is it the trajectories and I'm not sure how each magnetic field is defined, so that it's affected by anything from the outside.
That is something that a lot of people ask me, and actually it is not affected by people, because the magnetic field has like a strength, and it becomes weak, and we cannot really feel it. So around each module, there is like an area, like an aura, where the field is operating. And actually, I'm manipulating each field randomly over time. So it is different, but it is not that people affect the field when they approach the piece. And something that is important is that usually I like to do narratives in time when I create my pieces. And in this piece, everything is random, but is organized. There are some conditions. Everything happens randomly, but we can predict what happens even though it's random, because there are certain conditions in the field that allows that each pendulum, each choreography self-generates and self-organize. I'm very interested in exploring how nature self-organizes, and how we is part of that. All of us have a life that has random events, but there are certain conditions that create certain behaviors, things that are predictable. It's like, for example, if you know that a tree grows, there are new branches that grow every day. You cannot know exactly how each branch is going to be, but still when you see it, you can recognize and you know, is this variety. So this is the way these pieces are generated. I'm very interested in exploring with these pieces. Actually, there's something that I forgot to say before. This is part of a series of works that is called Delirious Fields, that explore all of these in different ways. So this piece is like a large scale that explores this relationship between the tangible and the intangible, and also how chance and works in the natural world, and how nature self-organizes, because that's very related to how we operate. And since I told you before that I'm always interested in creating narratives, the 10 pendulums, the complexity of the whole system, because the 10 pendulums are treated as an ensemble. So towards the edges, they are more simple, and as you approach the center, the trajectories of the pendulums become more and more complex. And other thing that is important in this piece is that there is a film, like a film below each pendulum, and the pendulum does like a sort of drawing that is always it gets erased constantly, it gets renewed constantly. So in a way, this is like a painting, it's a magnetic drawing. And so it leaves like a trace every time that as it moves, but it constantly changes. So it's a self-renewable drawing. And the other thing is that I wanted the viewer to be immersed, it's an immersive installation. People don't see the work in front of them, they walk inside the piece, they get closer to one pendulum, they see the whole ensemble. And it's very difficult to define a piece like this. Is this a choreography? Is this a drawing? Is it it is an installation? Of course, because I come from music, I'm very interested in the expressive nature of the gestures. Is not any gesture. I work very carefully on making these inanimate objects to acquire an expressive character. So basically, this is the main idea of that piece.
That's great. Is this the largest of this type of pieces you have made from this series? So this is the most monumental, so that is immersive and people can.
Yes, exactly. And actually, this piece, it usually, was also thought to sound, because the fields sound, but since I have there was another piece. Initially I did the piece without sound. It has a version that sounds, not because I put a sound on top of the piece, but because we are hearing the movement of the changes and the alterations of the fields. But in this piece we decided to use the silent version to balance out the whole exhibition, because there is another piece that is very loud.
Okay. Got it. I was gonna say that I think, is this in the same series? I think you show up in one of the group shows at Ulight, a pendulum piece.
Yes.
Or smaller, almost like.
Yes, actually, that piece was like a sort of the first step that I took to start developing this series.
Oh my goodness! Sorry, I can imagine what the experience of being inside that piece must be like.
It's big, it's a big installation.
So what will be the next piece that people will encounter?
Okay, so when people go down the stairs, there is like a niche. And they found another ensemble, another piece that is called Entropic Ballet from the same series, in which I'm using needles, a very simple object that all of us have at home,
needles. Okay.
Yes, something very, I don't know the right word in English, banal, maybe?
Yeah, very domestic.
Something very simple and not elegant. So I'm using this very simple object, everyday object. And here there are, I don't remember at this point how many pendulums, how many needles, but a bunch of them. And there is an electromagnetic field that drives them. And also they make a choreography. It's like a similar idea. But in this case, this piece functions a little bit different than, a lot different. It's the same principle, the same series, but actually is it becomes like a choreography in which there are, again, a bunch of, everything is random, everything is aleatory, but at the same is very complex. The needles become like very nervous. I wanted, as I said before, I come from music, so I'm very interested in exploring how in music you manipulate sound, and this abstract manipulation of sound at some point acquires an expressive nature that is transformative. So this idea of manipulating a form of vibration that in this case is an electromagnetic field, and make that manifest and acquire an expressive nature that is transformative is something that I'm very interested in because of my musical background. So here there is a completely different character, but again, there is this system in which the whole system self-organizes, and it becomes remindful of how complex systems in the natural world self-organize, like, for example, a crowd in the street, or a flock of birds, or a school of fish. They have ways of self-organizing. And here, again, I'm generating some conditions to generate random events that self-organize in a way that becomes predictable and that is very related to how things self-organize in the natural world.
So if I understood correctly, the movement of the needles are completely random versus the ones from the pendulums that you were able to program in a way, or not?
None of them is programmed. Not, what I'm programming is the alterations. The magnetic field is like something that has a strength, and what I manipulate is how the field becomes stronger or weaker, and where is stronger or where is less, strong, and that drives the movement. But in both cases, and in all the pieces of this series, everything is random, but it's predictable. It has an identity. I don't know if that is if I'm expressing it clearly.
So I guess it's random. It will continually be changing, but there is a pattern in a way.
Exactly. In a way, there are, I don't know if patterns, but things that, yes, like gestures that we know all what happens. We know that it's going to happen, but we don't know way and how. It's like, for example, if you observe crowds in the street, and the light is going to change. You don't know who's gonna work fast and how many people, but you can predict the people, or if there is a march and people is gonna chant. So there are things that are gonna happen that are predictable, but internally everything is aleatoric.
That's an excellent example, I guess. You know what things are gonna happen, but you don't know who's the individual that's gonna behave a certain way.
Yes, at a very small level, everything is random, but when you see it in a more general way, you start noticing that everything has an identity. It's not completely random. You know, it's not just whatever. It's not like that. But and what I program is what happens with the field, but in all these pieces, the intangible, inanimate object moves without using any motor or anything. It's not that I'm moving, nothing repeats. You know, it's not repetitive, or it just happens.
It just happens with it. And at risk of this one being a silly question, what is generating the magnetic field? Is this just the natural magnetic field that is in the environment, or is there something generating that particular field?
It's not a silly question. I'm using coils, you know, like it's a very old technology. I'm interested also in the, you know, I use technology in my work, but technology is not my goal. I use whatever technology I need to do what I want to do, but I'm not interested in technology just.
It's not about the gadget.
Yes, no, it's a tool. So in this case, I'm using a very old technology. So there are coils, like a copper wire around, you know, like the very old coils, and I send them voltage. Okay. So what I'm doing when I manipulate this, I'm using some like small mini controllers or brains that are called Arduinos. Okay. And they send the electric signal to each coil. There are a bunch of coils in this exhibition. I'm using like probably around 70 coils in the whole exhibition.
It sounds like it's fun to install and to.
I don't know. It's a very tricky. It's tricky. It's a detail. But as I said before, I usually don't mention that because that's not what is important for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about the type of instrument or the technology that you're using, but the principle, the natural principle that you're trying to demonstrate.
Yes, and also it's not only that I'm trying to it's not even that I'm trying to demonstrate something, but to reveal. I'm interested in I feel that with my work, when one does art, and I think this happens for every artist, as we work, we start to, the work starts to reveal things. One starts to understand new things that it would be impossible to understand in any other way. You know, there are things that are revealed through the work of art that in my case that I work with some things that are related with to physics, they couldn't be revealed with physics. They are revealed and they show things or that need the artwork that we can only do through the artwork. So even though sometimes people refer to me as an artist that works at the intersection of art, science, and technology, for me, it's yes, maybe it's true that I use technology and that sometimes I cross boundaries of science, but I feel that art is essential to reveal things that can only be manifested through the artwork. So it's a work of art.
But it's not an experiment. It's not a scientific experiment. It's the artistry that
It's an experiment, but an artistic experiment, not because this could be done by a physicist maybe, I don't know how many years ago. This is something that it has been resolved technically many years ago, maybe over a century. So it's not about that. It is about using this to explore our natural world and to see what these phenomena has to tell us about ourselves.
Gotcha. All right, and then what will be the last piece or the third and last piece that people will encounter?
Probably this is the biggest, I don't know if the biggest, but the main, but I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but it's of the exhibition. And in this work, when people walk inside the room, they find a cymbal, the musical instrument, like the ones that is played by a drummer at the center of a room. It is very dark. It's very difficult to capture in photographs and in video. So there is a cymbal, and there are no more objects. It's a room that has probably 30 by 30 feet, which is, it's a large room. And the cymbal is excited with energy, so it naturally resonates. It naturally vibrates. In this piece, I wanted to explore the fact that everything in the natural world is constantly vibrating. There is a vitality in everything, not only in what is alive, but also in the inert. And I'm very interested in the fact that we always have this idea that we are alive and there is the inert, but actually what my work has made me believe is that there is this vitality of everything. Things are less separated than what we think. So there is this symbol, and it sounds because it's resonating. And then there is a system of lasers in the ceiling that point to the symbol, and then we get to see these vibrations around the space. There is a narrative in time. The piece is a cyclic narrative that repeats every a little bit over 8 minutes. And also there is a composition in space. There is like a spiral of reflections around the symbol, where we see the same vibrations that we're hearing in this piece. What is seen and what is heard is inseparable, is the same. There's no difference. We think that what we hear and what we see usually is different, but in this piece, we are just seeing and hearing the vibrations of a symbol. And with these vibrations, I made this composition in which I composed basically looking at the reflections and hearing like, I worked as a musical composer, but with a material that can be heard and seen, that is no different, but is the same. It's just the vibrations of the symbol. And it is very important to emphasize that nothing is there are simulated. There are no digital simulations. Everything happens in the physical world. Everything is analog. And I'm not interested in doing a musical piece and sticking to it a visual material or vice versa. I'm interested in exploring this inseparable nature of our natural world, the fact that everything is one thing. And as I said at the beginning of the talk, I'm interested in exploring what is true for everything. And I'm willing to accept whatever perceptual manifestation the material has, if it's through the hearing or sight or smell. That is not so important for me. What is important for me is to explore artistically what I said before, how everything is one thing, and what is true for everything, and how all this that is so fundamental really determines many things about ourselves. I'm gonna say an example. For example, one day I was giving a talk in Miami. Actually, I don't know if you went to that talk at FI at Embas. And someone from the public sent me a book at at home. And one day I got this book that is called Vibrant Matter by Janet Bennett, and it was very interesting for me because it was very related to what I'm interested in exploring. And then I realized that what she says is that the way we organize our political institutions, something that I actually have experienced, the music we do is, it not only comes from ourselves, it comes through ourselves. It's nature, but expressing through, manifesting through ourselves. So it's very interesting. And when I do these works, that really becomes expressed.
I like that idea that you're bringing forward of us being nature and part of nature, and not that separation that sometimes we make ourselves believe that we are on top of the change and separate from nature, right? Like if we are not part of that natural world, it's like the animals, the minerals, everybody else, like in their every other element separate from us.
That's true. I think that the past century was a century in which philosophically everything was, there was a lot of reductionism. So this is music, this is visual art, this is philosophy, this is science. And then, of course, sometimes we need to reduce things to understand them. But that's not how things work. And I feel that in this century, even in philosophy, we have come to realize that things are completely interdependent, interrelated, and actually sometimes the same. And that's why now it's very common to see interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary work, because I think it is very difficult to explore our reality, our world through one discipline, or to really understand our humanity using just one discipline. We really need to integrate different forms of, not only disciplines, but different forms of knowledge to explore our world and our humanity.
Really nice, very well said. So with this review that we have done of the pieces, I would like to, before we start talking a little bit about the process of the exhibition, mention that this is all new work, right? Was this done specifically with the space in mind, with the museum in mind? And for people who don't know, the MAMBO, or Museum of Modern Art in Bogota, has a spectacular building, a very beautiful building. Yeah, it's I guess it's like mid-century, last century. What I know that architecturally is a jewel by itself. But how was that process of creating, and did you create things with the space that you're working in mind?
Yes, the idea of the show was to create site-specific pieces. So I really work with the space in mind, and I work in close collaboration with the museographers. I don't know the name of, I don't think in English we say museógrafo as we say in Spanish, but I work with the people who, the architects, a couple of architects in the museum, because, for example, the piece, I really wanted to transform the space. because I feel very comfortable in time. I come from music. I'm a composer, and this time I really wanted to create pieces where the space was really transformed. So in the symbol piece, the one that is downstairs, you enter to the room and you completely forget about how the room is. It's a completely vibrational space. You are surrounded by intangible things. You are hearing this sound and seeing the reflections. The ones that are close to the symbol are smaller, and then we have some reflections that are 12 by 12 feet big. So in some parts are really big, but there is this immersive vibrational installation. So I really worked with the plans and everything to work with the characteristics of the museum, of the spaces.
Of the space. And tell us a little bit about what has it meant for you personally and professionally to have this solo museum show in your city, because you are originally from Bogota and have been living outside for a long time.
This is one of the most important professional experience, if not the most important professional project, for several reasons. You know, as I told you before, I come from music. I've had very monographic, important concerts in Bogota, in the most important theaters and halls, and actually in other parts of the world. But as I have transitioned to the installation format, I feel that it is not only because of the importance of the Museum of Modern Art. MAMBO is the most important museum probably in the country. I'm working with a phenomenal curator, Eugenio Viola, who actually this year is the curator of the Italian pavilion at Venice Biennial, but also because I'm feeling that I'm opening a whole new field of work. I've never seen works like the ones that I create, you know, for the type of work that I do, when there was the art fair, people from many countries came to the museum, and some commentary that I heard very much is, you never see this type of work in a museum. And that has been a very persistent comment. This is something that you usually don't see in a museum. Now I'm quoting Eugenio. Eugenio, for example, in the symbol piece, where it is this character, the symbol at the center of the room, he always asks, is this performance? Or it's not a question, it's an affirmation. This is performance, this is music, this is installation, this is drawing, this is many things. And
be a sculpture too, right? Like
it is a sculpture, exactly. I forgot that. So for me, it's very difficult for, you know, usually you don't see sound art or in museums, or when you see works that use sound, they are not really doing a sonic exploration. They are usually using sound to express something that is more related to visual arts, to the traditional or the main topics that the visual art world is concerned with. So I feel that it is very important for me and for my, you know, I feel that I'm opening a path, which is difficult, but that, you know, some artists and people like me, we do that, and some other people need to develop what has been done in more predominant trends.
This is amazing. I guess the point about sound art is that sometimes sound is used more as a tool than as the protagonist of the piece.
Exactly,
right? Like
exactly.
The piece being about the nature of sound and sound itself versus being used to express something.
Exactly. I think, the sound art term is used very broadly, but I think it's completely different to say sound art or art that sounds.
Oh.
It's different. And usually, sometimes when you go to visual art exhibitions, you find pieces that are depicted as sound art. For me, sound art really has to do with a more profound exploration of the act of listening. For me, is very related more to listening and to the exploration of sound. And of course, I'm a person who tends to be very difficult to classify, that elude classification. I use sometimes when people ask me what I do, the term sound art, but evidently sometimes I do pieces that do not sound as these two pieces that are accompanying the piece at the museum, the piece that is downstairs at the museum. And actually the piece downstairs at the museum, for me, it's a musical composition. It's an installation, it's a sculpture, but the way I worked was more as a composer, and the way I understand it, everybody has a different way of defining this piece, immersive installation, or there are different ways of seeing the piece, as we said before, but I worked as a composer, and it's a piece that people sit there to listen and observe, because the sound and the vibration is seen throughout time too. I'm working in the space dimension time, which is the dimension where we live. So for me, all these pieces unfold in the space-time dimension, which is our dimension where we operate.
And locally, I guess you have been able to be there to see the reaction of the visitors and to get a little bit of feedback, get a sense of what is your reading of what people have experienced, like the common visitor, not necessarily the art critics or so, but how do people react to the piece?
I feel that people are super excited. People love it. People, sometimes we are scared about people, to bring people, to invite people to see new things, the unknown. But people love it. They love to be transported to another worlds. And I feel that in visual arts, in music, different things become sometimes like, at some point there is like an understanding. And that is something that I struggle with a lot, is that, for example, in the visual arts world, you start seeing these topics, these explorations that are like, and at some point it feels as if a visual artist would have to do that. But and that is quite difficult for me to understand, because of course some artists can do that, but it doesn't mean that other things couldn't be done. So I feel that life and our existence is so vast. There are infinite amount of things for an artist to explore, and it doesn't make sense to me that there are just 4 or topics for everyone to explore. And something similar happens in music. So my choice is, I feel that I'm an adventurous person. I'm willing to pay the price of pioneering, or I don't know what would be the word. I know that is tough, but it's fine. That's the way it is when you are walking a path that hasn't been walked before. It is gonna be more difficult. You can take the freeway and you can go very fast, or you can have to go with a machete, opening the branches. And that's my nature, and that's what I'm more interested in. When I see that a lot of people is really exploring in an interesting way a topic, I prefer to do something that is less explored. I'm very interested in exploring the unknown through my work, because as I said before, there's something that can only be revealed through art. That's why art exists. That cannot be revealed through science or other things. So that's why I think it is important.
A great thought and a great vote of confidence to art, right? Like that really is the essential. That's what sometimes it's difficult to say why art is essential. You know, like, oh, it's important, it's essential, we all need it. But actually, this point about, you know, there are things that only can be revealed through art, makes it very clear. I wanted to talk a little bit about the experience, because I think many other artists could relate to that, of how the exhibition came to be and how you connected with Eugenio, who's a lovely and amazing character, very approachable, humble. I was lucky enough to meet him when he came for the IKT convention that was for the like at the convention of curators, and which I believe was 2018 or 2019. Now I can't remember. I think 2019 probably.
Probably.
Yeah. And
yes.
Then so in 2019, around April 2019, and that was a lot of activities for that group of curators visiting different institutions and the museums, and there was symposiums, and it was really, really amazing. Then tell us a little bit about how the two of you connected in that occasion.
I was a resident at Ulight Arts, and then there was the IKT conference, and Eugenio in Italian came to my studio. He really, really liked my work. He came with actually some other curators. And I remember that it was very funny because they got so excited that they asked me to close the door. So because there was public, you know, it was a lot of people, it was the open studio, they asked me to close the door. And actually Eugenio was starting to work as a curator, chief curator at MAMBO. So he invited me to do a show. One thing that is very important for me to point out is that I think that Eugenio is very adventurous too. A regular curator wouldn't have invited an artist like me to do a show, but he's a person who dares to do things. And for example, when I speak to him, he had many opportunities to work in different parts of the world, but he chose to be the curator in Bogota because he's fascinated by the whole situation in Latin America, the things that are not, he doesn't follow the main trends. And he always says, I'm not living here, I love it here, there I am finding unique things here. So I think we got connected by this fact that we, in a way, by being a very important curator who has been named, I don't know how many times, best curator of the year, I think by Art Tribune. He's a very important curator, but in a way, he prefers to explore a territory that is less common for everyone. So I think that was something, not only the connection that we did with the work, but also the fact that he's a person who is adventurous and that dares to do something that is not what you can see in the regular show. Sometimes when you go to a museum, yes, you see pieces that are unique, that are beautiful, that are very interesting, but in a way, when you walk into a museum of contemporary art, you sort of can imagine what you're gonna find. And for example, this exhibition that we're doing, it's something that really takes people by surprise because people are not expecting that.
To see it, yeah. I wanted to clarify for other people who may not know who we were talking about. We were talking about Eugenio Viola, who is an Italian curator that came to Colombia. He's originally from Italy, and then he was named the chief curator for the Museum of Modern Art in Bogota. No, without some controversy also, because some people, were questioning why to bring a curator from the outside, which I think is, in this exchange of cultures is so important, as enriching as it has to be for Eugenio to come work to Colombia. I'm sure it has been very enriching for the artistic community in Colombia to have all the experiences that he's to bring. And now he's going to be the curator for the Italian pavilion at the Venice Biennale. So that's like, an amazing connection. And I just wanted to talk about this because to highlight the importance of having that exchange, of having curators visit us in Miami, and for them to have the opportunity to visit artists. And Ulight is great at doing that. So is Locus and other artists, run spaces or spaces where artists have their studios, a big house, but it's almost invaluable, right? How to have that opportunity to really have your work seen by someone who can invite you for something like this. So I'm very happy that we had this opportunity. That I've been excited from the beginning. I wish I could go to Bogota to see it. I have been lucky enough to be in there once and to have to have been to the museum before, and I was very, charmed and fascinated by the whole building. And this was before Eugenio was the curator, but still they had a very interesting program when I was there. And with an artist that used to be Miami based also, and I'm sorry that is a performing artist, and
Maria Jose Arjona.
Maria Jose Arjona, exactly. And that's how I didn't know her from before, but also had a phenomenal piece. So I've been, cheering for you from here, and I want everybody to know that this is happening, and hopefully some people who can visit in Bogota still have some time. And we have a piece similar. We were talking about that you have a similar piece here in Miami now that people could go visit. Tell us a little more about that.
Yes, there is an exhibition at Matt Foundation, which is a very interesting venue specializing in the arts and new technologies, directed by Rodolfo Peraza, the Cuban artist. So in this exhibition, which is Media and Their Dystopia 2.0, it has 5 participating artists: Rodolfo Peraza, Yusef Mary, Leo Castaneda, Jose Hernandez, and myself. And I'm doing like a version of the Entropic Ballet piece that is it's another version of the one that there is at the museum. The museum is probably a little bit more. It's a different version. This is like the museum is a piece for a museum. This is more like for a smaller group exhibition. But yes, people can go and see it. It's a fantastical show. All of us, and it's called 2.0 because there will be different versions. This is an ongoing project of a group of artists who we have been meeting for over 2 years now. We are work with different lines of work, but we have things in common. So it's these are phenomenal artists, and we also are all creating pieces, our first experiments for some of us with virtual reality. Rodolfo has been working with that for a while, but the rest of us are starting to do our first pieces, and also we're doing a series of talks that will start very soon on February 11th. Jose Hernandez will give his first talk.
First, nice. Well, I'm hoping that I'm, well, not hope, I'll make sure that I go see it, that I make my appointment and go see it. And do you have an idea until when will it be on view? We still have time.
It'll be till mid-March, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
So we still have some time. Well, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for, making the time to talk to us, and congratulations again, and best of luck in this pioneer work. Much success.
Thank you so much for having me, Dani, and I'll be back in Miami in mid-February, so maybe we can go to the show together.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that. Oh, I didn't ask you that. You are in Bogota now.
Yes, I am in Bogota right now.
Well, the weather has been very cool here too, so we are.
Yes. It hasn't been that bad here.
Missing much there until you come. All right. See you soon,
Okay.
Alba.
Likewise. Thank you, and goodbye to everyone. Thank you for
Goodbye.
having me. Bye-bye.